Hey everyone, welcome to Ink Scribes, the comics podcast where we discuss the art and craft of comics. I'm Colin Singh, an aspiring comics artist and lifelong student of the craft. I'm joined by my co-hosts Eric Zawadzki and Taylor Stauft. Before we get into today's episode, where we're going to be covering the late, great Jason Pearson, the boys have a couple of books to plug, so Eric, let them know.
I am the artist of Assorted Crisis Events, which is an ongoing book from Image Comics. It's basically Black Mirror if time and space was breaking down. Every issue is a single story, and every issue is experimental. And I put my blood, sweat, and tears in it, and along with the rest of the creative team. And I would appreciate anybody watching this pick it up.
Hell yeah. And I'm the artist on the upcoming From Fire and Flame, Jason Zhang adventure, available from Kickstarter. It is, by the time this is out, Kickstarter will already have been launched down below. If you like classic adventure treasure hunting stories like Indiana Jones, you're going to love this. It's part of the Dauntless Showcase #1.
Cool. Okay, so on this show, we're very fascinated by the evolution of artists. So I thought it would be fun to look at the 3 different style phases of one of my favorite artists, the late, great Jason Pearson. So I basically found 3 X-Men comics for all of us to look at. And those comics took place in 1993, 2002, and 2009. We see the full gamut of his style. We see the full gamut of his approach to drawing comics. So what did you guys think of all these comics?
This is all new to me, so it's very interesting to see the evolution that really took a wild turn towards the end there. It was interesting to see. It's very 90s, I think, but in a way that I really appreciate.
Well, that's interesting that you thought there was a huge turn at the end. So you think the first 2 have a lot more similarities than the last one?
I can see a through line between the 2, I guess, is what I mean. It's more like, it kind of reminds me, it's not the same style, but it reminded me of, if you look at Mike Mignola's work on, say, Cosmic Odyssey, and then his final pages for Hellboy in Hell, or the last BPRD story that he drew. It's this kind of shift in detail from detail to abstraction, I guess.
Yeah, and to be fair, these are just 3 comics. There are transition periods in between all these comics where you can see the transition between styles. It's more readily apparent, I suppose. I specifically chose these comics because they were 3 X-Men comics.
Yeah.
Style is a thing that is constantly evolving for artists. So it's a funny thing. And even then, these aren't solidified, because an X-Force comic, an X-Force annual that Jason Pearson did in 2009 might not necessarily look as similar to an Astonishing X-Men comic he did the year prior.
Oh, okay.
There's just it's just an interesting thing with artists that are constantly trying to push themselves and also meet a deadline. But I mean, actually, something I wanted to ask you guys is, if I had given you these comics blind and basically told you just these 3 comics are done by 3 different artists, that would be believable, right?
It would be, yeah.
I would definitely think the 3rd one was done by a separate artist. And I think, I think between the 1st and 2nd one, I would think, okay, is the 2nd one trying to ape the first one, the first guy? Is that what's going on?
So what are the commonalities, do you guys think, in all 3 of these? So I'll just say that the commonalities that I see are just he's consistently part of this dark cartoony style, cartoony noir. I haven't come up with a good name for it, but it's the same school of Chris Bachalo, Sean Gordon Murphy. What do you guys think would be a better name than like dark cartoony or cartoony noir?
Yeah, it's definitely that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and even looking at these three images here, we see that there are a lot of spot blacks and a lot of like noodly bits of complexity within those spot blacks, which is a very 90s thing probably.
It feels very slick, I guess, is part
Slick's
of
a good word
what
for it. Yeah.
I noticed. It's especially the earlier two versions or eras. It feels very, because that's what I was the biggest shift for me visually is in the third one. It gets a lot more,
Chaotic.
yeah, and like it
Mm.
feels like there's kind of more weight to characters. They feel. I mean, you can see in this, even in this, the magenta version. Uh, Storm's eye is like 2 to 3 times the width of her wrist, which is like that's a Disney thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's cartoonish, cartoon noir. I think is where it lands ultimately.
So I'll just say I think I've defined the three eras of Jason Pearson as his like angular years, where the art is like very
Sharp, yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of sharpness to it. There's the extreme cartoony years, and then there's his final form where it's a little bit of all of that, but just a lot more chaotic in his rendering. And I think it's the most energetic and my favorite. I'm a huge fan of Jason Pearson. Uh, this early stuff, I'm not the biggest fan of. It was only this final form, this later iteration that he became one of my favorites. But let's just dive right in. So the first comic we have is Uncanny X-Men Annual number 17.
Yeah, this is super 90s, but not in the way I was expecting.
Mm.
Yeah, it is probably super 90s, probably in the extreme detail and maybe excessive qualities, but I I always had this theory that if you were a 90s comics fan that there was like three types of kids. There was the extreme kid, the Wildstorm kid, and the Top Cow kid. And I'll leave the audience up to interpret what all those are. But later on, I think there was also I came to this idea that maybe there was also the Gaijin Studios kid. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, I know Colin's familiar with Gaijin Studios. Are you familiar with Gaijin Studios,
Mhm.
Taylor?
Not at all. No, I think I've heard of it, but yeah, no, I this was before my reading in earnest began. I think I'm still kind of like, I like the idea of reading comics, but I have yet to actually read a comic at this point.
So Gaijin Studios was unlike the previous three I mentioned. It was a collective that were in a studio. They didn't produce comics together, but yeah, it was like they were around for like 20 years. There was guys like Dave Johnson, Adam Hughes, Cully Hamner, Brian Stelfreeze, and Jason Pearson, of
Oh
course.
wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
And yeah, a lot of those aforementioned studios and Marvel and DC used a lot of these artists. They were in Atlanta, Georgia. And I so you brought up like uh, Jason Pearson stuff in this annual looking very 90s, but I specifically wanted to bring up Gaijin because they weren't like those other studios. I think they were very technically minded. You were more likely to get a realistic looking gun than a crazy sci-fi gun, as one
Okay.
example. And they were really good at drawing cars and a lot of technical stuff. And the lighting was extremely professional, I guess. Extremely, it, it, you know, it seemed like these guys were professional illustrators, whereas a lot of those other studios, the impression I got was like early on they were style first and then learn the technicals.
Yeah.
But your mileage may vary. It's up to interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real like that's a really good point you bring up, Eric, because it's a very precise style. I want to say the lighting and everything is very precise. It's not just thrown on a page. It's more. I mean, there's a lot of watercolor work and stuff that Stauft has done where, it's a little bit more spontaneous. But I look at a lot of those guys from that studio specifically, and they're still doing like the work of their careers today. And that's what I think
Yeah.
about when I think of like Jason Pearson. I wonder what he would be doing, today. What if he finished Body Bags, what that would be like.
Mm.
I know I've seen snippets of it on the internet. I haven't. There's nothing in print, but Uncanny X-Men was my first exposure to Pearson. And, in the 90s style, you can think of like drawing teeth. It's like infinite teeth. That's a really exaggerated style, but there was none of that in his stuff. All of his stuff was really educated and knowledgeable. He stretched like I'm a size relationship guy. He was a master at size relationships, right? Like he like if a figure was going to tower over one, it would exactly pulling up that one. That's a perfect example of it. Yeah, and so I really, this is also around the time that I really started taking notice. Around when I was about 9 or 10, I really started taking notice of who was drawing the book. I started tracking artists, and when Body Bags came out, I wasn't hip to Body Bags right away, but when I found out that Jason Pearson he did his own book, like this is his own creation, I scoured the back issue bins for Body Bags. I didn't get it for a while, but Uncanny X-Men though was the first time I took notice of him, and man, I love this book. I probably read it 100 times.
That what you said, Colin, just made me think. I think the most defining feature of the 90s artwork is just that it's breaking out of a kind of traditional and or house style that in
Post-shooter years.
yeah, in the because in like the
Yeah.
70s and 80s, or in the 60s, it's you're drawn like Kirby. If it's in the 60s or the 70s or 80s, it's you're drawn like Perez. But the 90s does feel like we're all going to try and push to find where this stops being either marketable or successful in storytelling or something. And they push it real hard, and they go in multiple directions. So you do get like infinite teeth and unending pouches, but you also get stuff like this that's very, it's almost like he's carving with a chisel, with a chisel end of a marker or something.
Yeah, I mean, like for these are his angular years, I say, and like you look at Jean Grey's hair, and there's just so many straight, sharp edges for this hair. And
It took me a while to know that was. I had to go back and like that
Oh,
is
yeah?
Jean, right? That's supposed to be Jean, not generic civilian redhead.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to. I guess the Jean's desire is supposed to sort of like hint at it, and you're
Yeah.
supposed to be confused. Like this opening sequence is like, what the hell is going on? Like the entire thing is just like this. This is some alternate world or alternate reality because these characters aren't in a normal situation. Like, Bishop's sister is not supposed to be alive, and Iceman is not leading the X-Men.
Ice Master.
But first of all, I should say it's written by Scott Abdel and inked by Mark Farmer. So the other stories we're going to look at are inked by Jason Pearson. So this is the one. So in these early years, if you were a penciler, you had to work with an inker.
Right.
When you were doing freelance work, you could go to conventions and talk to editors and show them a portfolio where you were a penciler and inker, and they would basically tell you, sorry dude, like pick a lane. Like give me an inking portfolio or give me a penciling portfolio. And it wasn't until like years later that that started to change.
That title image is by Pearson, right? The Wolverine.
Yeah, and I should say that
that I think is the personification of what you're talking about, Eric.
The angular qualities.
Angular.
Yeah.
And
yeah. But you can see that's still a human form. Like imagine Rob Liefeld or someone drawing that, right? Not to knock Rob Liefeld, but you can see that Pearson's is very knowledgeable in human anatomy. It's grounded in reality. There's he's a human in free fall, even though the hands are like that left hand is just thrown behind him. It looks like an afterthought, but it's right. That's correct.
That's a very good point. Yeah, he clearly understands human anatomy, because it's only when you understand it that you can push it and
Yeah.
stretch it and twist it as you want, because you know how things should work.
Well,
But like with something like Liefeld, he is trying to approximate anatomy, and it usually doesn't actually make sense.
Yeah, like the key is the foundation skills.
I also want to bring up though, like the scratches around his triceps and like the horns for his boots, like everything's just correctly done. It's not,
Mhm.
it's scratchy, but it shows form. You know, it's masterfully shows form.
Yeah.
But so stylized. I mean, the hair, like Wolverine's supposed to be hairy, and I've never seen somebody draw Wolverine like this
And
with
yet it works
the
in a
spiky,
weird
hairy.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he, I think he only used it for this and never came back to it because he has drawn Wolverine a whole bunch of times, and I think there is an infamous Wolverine image that has gone around the internet as with a lot of hate. Are you familiar with this image?
No.
Is that him in the gray costume,
Uh,
gray and
it's
black?
a I think it's a Transformers crossover cover, and he just draws a really stumpy Wolverine, and yeah, it's not very
Oh,
popular.
it's coming to my mind's eye, but I don't quite remember it exactly.
Is this with
But I
a
can I can picture him drawing Wolverine like that.
with he's like claws back,
Yes,
lunging
yeah.
forward?
Yeah,
Woof.
yeah.
No, but I mean that still works. I get what he's going for. It is
So,
very.
do you guys know who his biggest influence is?
I'm gonna say manga.
Michael Golden.
Golden. It's golden.
Really?
Yeah, Michael
It's
Golden.
good. I
And
thought.
like
Yeah, I
his
thought we covered this
Wolverine,
last episode. No.
yeah, his Wolverine, you can kind of see that he's basically filtering Michael Golden's Wolverine through his style a bit.
Hmm.
And when you look at all those Wolverines, you can kind of see, especially if you specifically, there's that Michael Golden Holiday special. But yeah, we'll have to cover that when we look at the Michael Golden Artist Edition, which I have over there, and we're going to look at one day because they have that Wolverine short in it, in its entirety. Okay, so this is 3 years into his career, and this you have to imagine just like 3 years into your career, you get handed an X-Men comic in the '90s. Like
Woof.
that's a
Yeah.
big
That's,
deal.
that's so much pressure on what I'm gonna assume is a young guy.
Yeah, yeah, you would.
You know, to top that though, this was one of the first appearances of the
It is
Executioner,
the
who
first
was
appearance.
basically supposed to be a new right, and he was supposed to be the new big bad for the X-Men. So that's the added pressure too. And I love. I mean, this is one of my favorite costume designs for the X-Men. I've always loved the Executioner's costume design, but it's so over the top. Every every bit of
Very
it.
'90s.
The way he draws him, though, it's very '90s, but it's like he shows the human form underneath. Like it all works. The boots and everything, it all works. It's somebody like clumping around there in that
So did
suit.
he design this character, or is it
Yeah, I believe.
his interpretation of like an already created character?
I think around this time, all the annuals. I might be wrong about this, but I think all the annuals had this specific mandate, and it was marketed to this as this like a brand new villain
Oh,
for the heroes to fight. And so, I mean, this character seems kind of shoehorned into this story because for the most part, the Executioner doesn't have too much to do with like the main story to do with Mastermind. But yeah, I mean, so Jason Pearson and Scott Lobdell got a chance to create the Executioner, and so here's another quality of his work, which is just like, yeah, I mean, a lot of shading, a lot of stark blacks, and so he does this thing that we were commenting in the Greg Capullo episode about, where you can see the teeth and bits of the clothing and the hair on an otherwise like a silhouetted figure.
yeah. It's a very. I wonder if I guess the point of that is it's quick and it fills a space and also drops out distraction from the eye, because you're supposed to be looking at Jean's desire. They've got a character even pointing towards The Doors.
Yeah, it's a good call. I wonder how much of it is time saving as well, because these pages
Yeah,
are detailed.
they sure are.
And I don't know, your first major Marvel gig, you kind of want to hand it in on time, but you also want to hand in something super impressive. So you got to do some sort of balance there where, yeah, I don't know. So I can see it as like, I don't know, time saving, but also I think it is a specific style quirk of his. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it looks good
I
though.
love the way he designed Nimrod here. His
Yeah,
depiction of Nimrod is awesome.
Very
yeah,
chunky.
yeah. Got a lot of
Yeah.
weight. Got a lot of well, like Colin said, size relationship. Like
Yeah, look
man,
at the
the
size.
Nimrods feel enormous.
And
You
his
know, side note, Pepe Larraz's Nimrod is pretty freaking awesome too, from the House of X.
That is that Laraz or is that the other guy Silva?
oh yeah.
I think. Well, didn't he appear simultaneously in both series, or no?
Ah, did he? I would have to go back and check because they traded off and on, but in like sometimes it would be like
Well, however he looked, or whoever drew him, he looked great in that too.
yeah he
So
did
Yeah.
yeah huge and menacing, but also weirdly adorable.
and cold,
Yeah,
and
cuddly.
cold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love the reflection of his face on the knee here. It's a nice touch.
yeah.
So something I also associate with Jason Pearson is just so dynamic. Just the action just like jumps off the page. The
yeah.
figures jump off the page. Okay,
You know, some
and
decisions he makes there to have one character all in silhouette, and the other one is fully drawn, but they're sharing the same light sources, right? But I love stuff like that. He just makes it work.
now in this and like the last one, there's a lot of like fixed views of things where we get to see like the three things happening here. So she's running
Hmm.
down the hallway and there are these people, and then there's an explosion, and then the Nimrod's chasing after. And then again, like these two panels are a fixed camera view as the Nimrod is approaching, and she can't get out of the door. So there's actually quite a bit of that in the last comic we're going to look at today.
Hmm. Yeah.
So his Jason Pearson's mentor was Keith Giffen. On his very first comic with DC, he did some indie stuff, but his first comic with DC was Legion, which Keith
Yeah.
Giffen did layouts for him for the first several issues for most of that run, I think, and
Oh.
that was him learning storytelling, and a lot of it was 9 panel grids. So, by his own admission, he learned storytelling from Keith Giffen, and only after he figured out the 9 panel grid could he escape that and do some more, I guess, what I would call more 90s type of storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. Cascading.
But he still sticks to a lot of those basic principles, like, with the storytelling is very clear.
Oh yeah, yeah, and he basically said you need to learn the alphabet before you learn how to spell, or no, what did yeah, something like that. Like yeah, he learned how to tell stories with the 9 panel grid, and then only then could he become a great storyteller, escaping the 9 panel grid.
Yeah, because however you feel about the style that he uses, which I think there would be some people who are like, this just isn't for me, or whatever. You can't deny he is very clear in his storytelling. Like you follow, your eye tracks around the page correctly. You're not really ever lost as to what is going on, unless the story calls for it. Like with the like, what's up with Ice Master, or why are X-Men comics being sold for young Nate Gray? So you get yeah,
Yeah,
regardless
I
of the
mean
style.
it's supposed to be a big confusing mess, and he
Yeah,
like the world is supposed to be confusing, but he makes everything clear.
he does. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point out a little Easter egg here. This guy's wearing a Gaijin Studios hat. And so this, I think, is
Backwards.
another consistency with the Gaijin Studios people, is this like double lighting. Uh,
Yeah,
a
the
lot of that
Brian
early Adam Hughes and Brent Stelfreeze stuff
Brian
had that.
Stelfreeze. Yeah, I was gonna say that still shows up in his Black Panther stuff.
Yeah. That's like that's a huge part of the gaijin style, I think, which they
Mhm.
all have different styles, but there are certain crossovers. I just remember reading like when Adam Hughes was learning well at Gaijin Studios, they would get these like bodybuilder magazines and just like study the lighting.
Mm.
And the thing about working in a studio is you all challenge each other, and you all there's a competitive spirit, and so somebody's studying bodybuilder magazines, you need to one up yourself as well, and so everybody's studying all this stuff and just getting better and better.
I do remember one of the artists, I want to say it's Adam Hughes, that said, reading those muscle magazines with all the oiled up muscles and stuff, it was a really good reference for drawing leather and clothing and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Make sure to check out
Like
our
the
Adam Hughes.
because when they ink leather, though, it has very defined where the light hits it, and the framing of the blacks and everything. It's like looking at a photograph of a bodybuilder. All the oil on their skin is like the light's reflecting right at
Right.
certain
Yeah.
spots. You know,
But I will point out too, though they do make he does make sure to, like for instance on uh, uh, Bishop's sister there, he still avoids the boob sock look. Like
Mm,
that is actual
yeah.
fabric going over her torso and conforming to it,
right?
but it's not like you saw it a lot in Catwoman designs in the 90s.
And like
Jim
Jim
Ballon.
Belan, yeah.
Yeah,
Just like 90s in general, the
yeah,
boob sock look. But yeah, like yeah, again, these gaijin guys were more technically focused, but still filtered through that 90s excess.
oh yeah, yeah. It's got to be totally extreme for the Executioner's song.
Some really great shots of Nimrod. His blasters and everything over the next couple pages here.
Yeah, and this is
All the
interesting because
Nimrod
this is
panels are nice.
1993, and some digital coloring is coming into play
Hmm.
here. Because you wouldn't get all these color holds even like 3 years prior to this, and there are a lot of sequences where you get interesting color holds. Like for instance, right here, I don't think at this point in 1993, I don't think an overlay is being created. I think because this is clearly digital, you see this gradient here,
Yeah.
and so I think he might be just using another color on the board, and then the colorist can sort of pull that out. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Now again with the hair, like very
Yeah.
angular.
Yeah. Who is that supposed to be? Okay.
Polaris,
Polaris.
Hmm.
who's like Magneto's daughter, maybe sorta. It like goes back and
Sometimes, yeah.
forth depending on who
Yeah.
writes it. And we have this like drooling feral Wolverine.
I like that Wolverine design. I love when Wolverine is shown to be
Yeah,
like a 5'3" stumpy
Yeah.
guy.
yeah.
I mean, look at the amount of drool
Yeah.
on here. It's so cool. It's he's just going nuts.
For the last stretch of it, he does employ the 9 panel grid
Oh
in
yeah.
in a few
Yes.
spots towards
Yeah.
the
No.
yeah.
This is a great sequence because again, what how I explained it earlier is like the reader doesn't know what the hell's going on. Like all they know is like this is not right. This is and then we get this sort of zoom in, and it has a really creepy vibe. Jean Grey finds her husband, and then there's this figure in the background, and we slowly zoom in, and this smoke kind of like covers the smile before it's a big reveal, and then like the very next shot is like
Mm,
reality, and this is really creepy looking, and yeah, it's just very very well done as we zoom out, and this is what's going on.
yeah.
I love this
Yeah. That
sequence
is
so
a
much.
good. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Turns out Mastermind is in all their heads.
Yeah. It's a very.
Or they're in his? I don't know.
It's like he's the central hub of this shared illusion, I guess.
Yeah. Now, you guys talked about Storm's hair earlier. This is a very graphic
Yeah.
look that I really love, where everybody else gets all this like detailed hair.
Which
Yeah.
makes sense, right?
He
That's light based.
Storm's one of my favorite characters, and he probably draws one of my favorite iterations ever.
Yeah. It makes sense too, right? Like there wouldn't be that much detail in an all white. It's like when you see polar bears, it's
And he
not like you
stays.
see that like a lot of detail, right? It's just like this
Yeah,
chunk of white.
Yeah.
And it would be the same for
Yeah.
long flowing white hair.
He stays pretty consistent and faithful to that look too.
you're right. Yeah, I want to bring that up in the next comic we look at, which is what 7 years later. Oh, almost 10 years later, actually. Which we'll look at in a bit. But he maintains this look, but pushes it a little more, and it gives this sort of like there's a halo over her.
Hmm.
And because he depicts her here like from an acting perspective, like we have this over the top archangel just hamming it up, a ridiculous amount of acting, and then we have this regal kind of stiff acting for Storm, and I think that goes to how he views her as a goddess. And so I see the hair as a sort of halo around her.
You could also see it as in motion. Like I think we see it later, but when she's actually in motion, it's like a bolt of lightning as she's in combat.
Yeah, yeah, good call. Yeah, especially like towards the end here when we have this big big splash page moment, and yeah, like no detail at all within that
Hmm.
form. Well, a little bit here, I guess, but so yeah, very lightning bolt effect. Okay, so yeah, honestly, like as I said, like my favorite stuff is the third comic, so we don't have to go over too much of this. There, but there is a couple of things to comment here. Like, yeah, the '90s were all about excessive detail, and
Yeah, that's great.
uh, his biggest influence is Michael Golden, and I can see Michael Golden all over
Hmm.
this. This drives me mad.
Yeah, letterist gets
Uh,
perspective, tilted perspective correct.
and that's the thing. Like, just because you're a letterer doesn't mean you understand perspective. And even then, it's like this is computer technology of 1993, so they probably didn't even have the capabilities of
That's
doing text in
Yeah, that's
perspective.
probably what's going on. Although it does work in the shot below.
Yeah, although
Well,
it's not a skewed perspective that's slowly shrinking as it gets lower. It's just
yeah.
tilted, which is what this is too, just tilted. Yeah, I mean, computer power of the '90s.
It's got 64 megabytes of RAM.
Uh,
It's the fastest computer in the world, capable of reading minds.
I love this finger wagging. So
Actually, yeah, that's a good use of the of dash lines, motion lines. It's hard to get like finger wagging correct.
yeah, and actually, it's so these short sporadic lines here and here, that is going to be huge in his style in the later phase. Like these lines are going to just be everywhere, just little tick marks all over the place. And like when there's an explosion, there's a whole bunch of these tick marks rather than like a handful.
Hmm.
So early signs of that. And actually, that brings up something. There's no cross hatching in this at all.
No, he just does little dashes.
Yeah, feathering here,
Yeah.
but yeah, and dashes and stuff, but like no cross hatching because in the very next comic there's a lot of cross hatching.
Could you go back a page? I also want to the that top left panel on the left page. I think that's a great bit of a little bit of comedy with
Yeah,
Baby Cable and his gun the size of him. That's You didn't
almost
have to do that.
commentary of the '90s.
Yeah, but it's like that's fun. That's funny. I would have liked to
But
have
hey, the
seen.
gun looks like a gun.
That's true. It does. Yeah, it's got a clip
It's
lock
got
and
three.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a revolver chamber. But that's fun too, right? Like
Yeah.
it's an impossible gun made out of pieces of real guns. I would have liked to see him on like a comedic, like Lil X-Men or something, a one-shot or something
Yeah, he
like
would have
that.
been great at that.
Yeah.
So overall, this feels like he got an X-Men gig and he was gonna go all out and he's gonna put his all into it, because you do get some wild stuff like when Mastermind dies. Like this is
Yeah, that's
now Mark Farmer inked this, and I mean I just wonder, like, did Jason Pearson do this himself, or did he, write a note to Mark Farmer to say go nuts?
yeah. How do you pencil splatter?
Yeah.
But I mean, it feels like he wanted to be ambitious and he wanted to show off because you're a young guy on the hottest selling comic on the stands. You show up to impress.
Yeah, you got to roll in expecting to eat
Yeah.
with the intent of eating everyone's lunch. You cannot be the charity case.
Yeah, yeah, and it does feel like he went all out, even with like he was denoting a lot of these holding lines,
Mm-hmm.
which wasn't super common back then. But yeah, even the lightning as a holding line.
No, but as a younger guy, he might be more up on emerging computer technology and have that in his mind as a possibility, as opposed to whoever. Because I can't remember what the name of the person that does the other story in this annual is,
Tom
but it's
Grimmett.
Who do
but
we
it's
have?
like
Yeah, I
uh,
mean,
Tom Grimmett.
yeah, yeah, with Al Milgrom inking him. So like that's, they may not know or be thinking in terms of, oh, well, the colorist can handle this. I can add a note or to do a color hold or something. Also, I just noticed DCEIC Marie Javins showing up
yeah,
as the colorist in that last page.
yeah, that's crazy.
Shout out
Yeah.
to Marie Javins. She gave me some great advice last year
What
at
the-
ECCC. I just want to say I really like his storm design in her physicality. Like she's so long and lean. She's got the feel of like a ballet dancer that can fly. It's a great look for
She's yes.
queen slash goddess slash leader of the X-Men.
This pose was something. This pose was something I commented on with that one Joe Mad issue.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Mad does a very specific pose, like similar to this, and I recall Steve Skroce doing a similar pose in one of his X-Men comics. And yeah, this just feels like Storm to me. This it's a very regal look.
In
Yeah.
So my wife is a huge fan of ballet, having been a ballet dancer in her youth. So in Italy, we went and saw the Milan Ballet, and for the first time, I actually got to see like what is the point of on point, and it's the point of it when it's done correctly is to make you look like you're actually floating. And although it's a roundabout way of saying this communicates that so well, like the kind of stiff leg. Da, 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 da.
Oh, interesting. That's a good connection. She does have a ballet kind of look when she's
Mhm.
doing that. Huh. Very cool.
I just noticed what's with this break in the on the left hand page, the main lightning bolt and ball. There's a break, like a text box was supposed to be there or something
Oh,
in the bottom lightning bolt.
oh, yeah, I didn't notice that. Huh.
That's
Actually,
weird, right?
Wait, what?
I saw the original art somewhere. Let me see. No, that's not it. Here we go. Um, there we go. Yeah, so the lightning bolt
Oh,
isn't on there.
interesting.
So, here, hold on.
Yeah, that's real
Oh, I
weird.
guess so.
Let's
It
make
was
a
an overlay.
documentary about this.
Yeah, it looks like he did use an overlay, actually. Maybe it was on a separate piece of paper that he created the lightning. He had to have. And
I wonder.
but also
He really
if you look at this page, so let me find the corollary for this page where Bishop shows up. Where is it?
One other thing to point out, I think, actually, yeah, if you see, so he really put Mark
Right here.
Farmer to the test inking all these, because look at all the speed lines all throughout this book.
Yeah.
Like you try doing all speed lines on one page
Ugh.
in a circle.
Yeah.
Try it. Go. I'll wait. Go ahead.
I've tried to do it. It's you mess up so quick. Like now you would have on digital you would have
Farmer's probably like,
yeah.
Farmer's like, yes, motherfucker.
Digitally now you
Yeah.
could use a tool, a perspective tool or a line tool or something. But man, back then, holy shit.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There is the evidence of line on the page to show Bishop here,
Yeah.
which goes there. But then with that lightning page, the lightning had to be an overlay. So yeah, I mean, it's another sign of him just going all out for this major gig. Like he was willing to put in that extra work to create basically another layer on a physical piece of paper.
Yeah, you would have
Yeah.
had to. Like a vellum overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that was the first comic. The second one we have is X-Men Unlimited number 39. This is a Bachelor cover, but the interior is Jason Pearson.
Hey, beautiful Bachelor cover.
It is.
Asterix.
I have the comic here, and actually, the physical comic has a credit page, but on Kindle, for some reason, they don't have that credit page.
Weird.
So, this is basically story and art by Jason Pearson, colored by David Stewart. So, he wrote and inked it this time. And I think in interviews he said he learned inking from studio mate Carl Story. And I believe he's using a brush to ink.
It sure looks like it, yeah. Just because everything is so finely pointed, I guess.
Yeah, actually,
As a side note,
let me see.
not a side note, just as an aside though, what do you guys think of the mandate for the lettering in this era of Marvel, where they told them to take the caps lock button off?
That's a good question, yeah, because I remember reading somewhere that starts in the Ultimates, maybe.
Or New X-Men?
Yeah, the
I think
Ultimate
they
line,
do.
I believe. Yeah.
So, and I wonder what is up with that. I have heard or read in articles that printing technology, both the paper and the plates that were used in, the 30s through the 80s, just couldn't really reproduce smaller letters. There was like a size limitation that they just couldn't reproduce clearly. So everything was like caps lock with exclamation marks, because you would lose just periods or commas and lowercase letters. But that now in the 21st century, us mighty men of the future have the ability to use uppercase and lowercase in lettering.
Yeah,
So you can your
so
G's
we
connect to
can do
L's
it,
now.
but should we do it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because
That's what that
I
was the
think what
question,
Colin
yeah.
was leading to is that it is not a good look.
Hmm.
Is that what you're
In
saying,
some
Colin?
cases, it is. I'll say. No.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, I
I'm not
didn't
a big
really
fan of
feel
it.
any way about it at the time. Yeah, I mean, here and there, it really stands out. But overall, I'm pretty indifferent to it. I know Hickman still uses the lowercase for his stuff, so all his Marvel stuff is
I
lowercase, right? So
I could see there being an argument for readability, especially for younger readers, that it's easier for them to read.
Yeah.
could be.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? They were this area. This is 2002, and this is like post bankruptcy Marvel, and they were just trying new things and just
That's
looking
true.
at.
Yeah.
They're looking at everything and saying,
Trying everything.
okay, that is a rule, but why is it a rule, and why don't we do something different? And that applied to everything, even just like, oh, yeah, but why is Bucky dead? uh,
Yeah.
and uh, a lot of the comics were very experimental too. But yeah, so yeah, Jason Pearson wanted to write his own stuff for the longest time, and he didn't always get the opportunity. The very first thing he was offered to write was a Savage Dragon miniseries. But I guess X-Men Unlimited is an anthology series. And in this actual issue, there's like 3 stories. So he got the opportunity to not only write it, but also ink himself, which Marvel wouldn't let him do earlier on.
Hmm.
With that last comic as an example, nearly 10 years prior.
Hmm.
So again, like, look at Storm's hair here. It has a kind of halo look, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's almost like a giant prince or a Queen Amidala crown,
Yeah.
around
That
her
is what
head,
it's
Yeah.
like. This is
like a
this is
headdress.
reminding me a lot of the twins, Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba, in terms of style abstraction here.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
Which
parts
this
of it though.
predates
it's the
them.
dream girl hairstyle.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, but it,
so
it draws your attention to her too, right? Like you instantly know, even from the back, like that
Yeah, like you gotta
left-hand
talk to
page middle
her.
panel. Yeah.
Yeah,
so I find it interesting that you can see the through line between this and the last one, because this is just so different to me. Like, looking at this face, you would not see anything close to this face on that previous comic we looked at. But and
Mm,
also, like, the amount of cross hatching going on, like, he's added that to his
yeah,
arsenal.
yeah, that's a new technique. I think just because of the heavy blacks, it's very like he's sticking with that style, and the
Yeah,
cartooning feels like a natural extension of what he was doing
yeah, that makes
in the
sense.
previous one.
mm,
He's getting more comfortable with swoops, and especially, and it's probably has to do with inking his own stuff. He has a better feel for. Well, I know where this line needs to go. I don't have to worry about an inker and their ability to follow curved lines.
Yeah, and when you're inking yourself, you have a lot more freedom to improvise on the page in the
Yeah.
inking stage. Whereas if you're handing it off to an inker, especially in the '90s, you kind of wanted to make it as tight as possible, just to be more in control. And I don't know how he was with Mark Farmer in the previous issue. I don't know of any pencils that exist, but
the lace under the chin. That's really interesting. How he's very sparse with the lines. He just uses the lines, and
Mm.
it's still really like nicely. It like fits in with the other textures on there.
Hmm.
yeah. Now, I'm a huge fan of Jason Pearson, and his stuff has influenced my work a little bit. Uh, I I'm not a huge fan of the art in this particular comic. This phase is my least favorite phase of Jason Pearson's career, and a lot of it just comes down to pure aesthetics, like just what I personally find appealing. And like, I'm just not feeling this cross hatching, and it all makes sense,
Yeah,
and
but it
it's all
does.
technically good, but I just don't feel it.
Yeah, it does have kind of a dusty feel to it. If you don't use hatching right, it can end up feeling like you've got you kind of it has kind of a Charlie Brown pigpen feel to it, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's dust clouds clinging to you and hovering around you.
That's
This
a
does
good.
feel. This also feels of the time though too, right? Like it does feel kind of more. Okay, we've gotten away from the '90s. We've all become better artists just through grinding through, if nothing else. And now with computers, we can really push stuff.
Yeah, and I think the inking is just incredibly stiff. I think the inking is just so
Mm.
stiff and lifeless, in a way that the stuff in his next phase had so much energy to it.
Mm.
Uh, I just think, like, he had a very energetic pencil underdrawing, and he just killed it with this inking. For me personally, it's
Do
just
you
a little too perfect.
do you think Do you think if it was flat colors, you'd like it better?
Good
No,
question.
no. I mean, I'm just looking at the line work, and I'm just like,
You sure?
I am very sure because I'm speaking as like someone who is a
Oh,
huge fan of his last phase. Such a
okay, I
huge
just
fan that I'm trying to implement it into my work, and I just look at this and it just like that is not the stuff that I see here.
well maybe
And
sleep on
so
it
no, I mean
because
what
I
it
just
comes
think
down to is
if it
the inking. So he was I let me see. I learned that he used a Kolinsky hairbrush, Scarf
Very
3000.
nice.
Yeah, and it looks like he's doing inking exactly how you're taught to ink, and he's doing it perfectly, and it's just very professionally done, and it is lifeless to me.
I don't know
I,
about
I'm being
lifeless,
a
but it
little harsh,
is.
and I'm saying this as someone who's such a big fan of his next phase. When I believe he is no longer using a brush, which we'll get into soon.
It is very slick. It is very prefab. Is the only thing I can really think of. Like each line has been, yeah, like it meets industry standards. I guess I see what you mean by like it's. I think
It's
I
very
get what you mean.
traditional.
Yeah, yeah. Although I do love that face in the shadow of the old guy. That's a
can
great
you
use of shadows.
So this is Magneto. This is, I think he's doing a bit of an Ian McKellen here. This is
Yeah.
2002. The movie had just come out, and I think he's doing his version of like a cartooning caricature of Ian McKellen. I just want to comment on the storytelling here. Uh, I I recently drew a funeral scene, and when I was drawing or trying to figure out how to draw that, and it was one panel, but in that one panel, I realized I have drawn so many cemetery scenes in all the time I've been drawing comics. They all add up, and you tend to repeat yourself over time. This is a very unique funeral scene because it's on a hill. Like um, cemeteries don't look like this.
No.
You don't dig a body into a hill.
No.
Uh, but it's an incredibly unique and original and good looking way of drawing a cemetery. And I really appreciate it. Again, with Jason Pearson and technical drawings, he's actually known for drawing cars. And he's very his whole thing was he was drawing very urban stuff in a time where comics was very white.
Mm.
Like his Savage Dragon was not Eric Larson's Savage Dragon. Eric
Oh.
Larson's Savage Dragon was a superhero book, but Jason Pearson's Savage Dragon was very street. And so yeah, just having like a lowrider in here and drawing it from a very cool angle. Um, yeah, he had a different voice than the average comic artist, I think.
Yeah.
And just
yeah I
like this
was
tire screech is just so cool.
Yeah, this is the era
yeah
of the beginning of Fast and the Furious too. So his aesthetic is starting to of choice is starting to ebb into the mainstream.
Yeah, now again with the cartooning here, like look at this. Look at all these faces.
See, this is yeah, this feels very Moon and Ba to me in terms of faces, especially the farther back you
Yeah, I can
go.
see that.
even Bruce Timm a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Whenever Bruce Timm actually designed, like, say, Jack Kirby to make a cameo in any of the DC cartoons, or any of, like, a creator being depicted in the show, like, it's still unmistakably that person in real life, right? And he gives them their own individuality where they're unmistakable. Each one has a character trait, like a big nose or big glasses or whatever the case may be. But I see that a lot in his crowd scenes, like specifically this panel. Each character is a character.
yeah, somebody had the audacity to wear a baseball hat to a goddamn funeral. But it's distinctive.
Now, I think around this time, I think I had heard that Jason Pearson made this pivot to go more into cartooning. I think he felt the need to lean into unrealistic things, like the idea that you can see realistic stuff anywhere and everywhere you go, and he really wanted to have a unique voice and something. Geez, how do I don't even know how I'm phrasing this, but
Wants to make it so that when you read a Jason Pearson comic, you are reading a comic by Jason Pearson, not like a representation of the real world sort of thing.
yeah, and I think around 2004, 2005, like around this time, Marvel was leaning heavily into more realistic art. In fact, like I think Bill Jemas was like pushing out a lot of the cartoonier type artists. Like
Yeah,
he
this
wanted to
is
get rid of John Romita Jr. He
Yeah,
got rid of
Greg Hort was getting a
Ramos.
lot of work around that
yeah,
time.
yeah. Brian Hitch just like getting pushed
Yeah.
on the Ultimates.
And so yeah, the aughts were all about realistic type art,
Yeah.
and and Jason Pearson was going in the opposite direction. He was trying to become more cartoony.
Yeah, man. Now that you point that out, Planetary, you get the Ultimates. I remember there was probably 15 years ago somebody pointing out, look at all the laces that they've put on Ultimate Cap's boots. You never had to draw that before, but now look at all the seams and laces and everything.
Even like
The ribbing, lots of ribbing.
The scale on Captain America, the chainmail or whatever, like you could see every single bit of it.
Yeah, you need to show when he flexes, some of them go up and some of them go down. Oh yeah, that does.
Well, it was just a standard of art that they were pushing, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's what people were expecting, and it was probably, I think, it's a push by the industry as a whole, but ultimately, Quesada, his whole goal was to get comics into bookstores, and if you had realistic art, I think it would have been easier to sell to people embarrassed of buying comics. Like, no, this is real art. This isn't the trash of the 60s or whatever. This is
high art.
Is for cartooning is for kids, right?
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
I love his Magneto design here. It reminds me of Chris Bocciolo, how with the little bit, it's a little bit too big for you. You know, the armor is like a little bit too much, and this also shows that it's weathered. And there's like tiny little chips in it you can see. Like with Magneto, obviously he's a character from like World War II, so he's really old, and you can tell that armor is from back then, or from the '60s when they first came out.
Yeah, this was a time where they were not quite sure how to handle that, especially when they tied characters to a specific time. Like, he was a child in a concentration camp. That nails him firmly to an age. And I think they were having a bit of trouble. Like, wait, how old is he supposed to be? Can mutants live longer? What's going on?
Oh, and I think there were always just sort of crazy explanations for pseudoscience explanations for, I don't know, he used his magnetism powers to slow the something or other in his body to
I think at one point they de-age him
Joseph.
Just to kick him back and then reveal, oh, you know what, he wasn't a teen there, he wasn't like a 15-year-old boy, he was like an 8-year-old boy, so that gives us an extra 7 years. This does feel I think you're right about the about Ian McKellen. This feels very like, if you put a beard on him, it feels very, you shall not pass.
yeah
That's true. Actually, really long jaw, or long from the nose down.
So I also think Jason Pearson was implementing this style in order to meet deadlines. That's my theory, because you look at that Uncanny X-Men annual that we looked at, and from back in 1993, and it is not feasible to get regular work putting that amount of detail in. And I mean, it's hard enough to make a living in comics. You have, in order to make money, you got to produce the work. You can't be laboring over a page. You have to produce a significant amount of pages to make a living. And I think
panel that you're hovering over, sorry, go back one.
Yeah.
Third panel on the second page there of Storm. Like that's the most perfectly lit shot of her face. That she looks,
Yeah,
she still maintains that regal look. Like that
it's
regal look is
just
very
so
consistent. But
round.
here, yeah, here she looks like a force of nature. You know, that's perfect. Even the jewel on her holding her cape, like everything
And
about it is just
actually, that's something I wanted to comment on as well, which is that the previous stage was of his career was very angular, and we still get a bit of that here. Like her shoulder has a point here, but for the most part, this is everything is very curvy. It's
Yeah,
like the
now,
complete
mhm,
opposite.
yeah, Storm is thicker than a bowl
yeah.
of oatmeal now, and I think we're all here for it, right? We can all admit it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And yeah, he still has a bit of that angular quality here, like that.
Yeah, the
I
sharpness
love
of it. Yeah.
I love long eyelids. The long eyelid look, the large eyelids is a really good
Yeah, her kind of
aesthetic in cartooning that I
her
yeah
cat-like appearance.
And also, he
yeah
draws her with a bit of a widow's peak, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he
Which,
does.
yeah.
which I guess you
It
can't see it
fits.
here, but yeah, she's got a point coming down.
Yeah, a Bella Lugosi point.
But I mean, overall, like, I'm not a huge fan of this art, but you guys appreciated it.
I think so. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah,
it does feel, it feels like indie books from the 2000s. Counter
Yeah,
programming, I guess, to the Ultimate Universe, and because that was the big thing at the time too, right? Is Ultimate Universe is coming out, and the whole point of the Ultimate Universe was, what if? Because Marvel is the world. It's supposed to be the world right outside your door, and it's almost like they had gotten so far away from that with an Elastic Man that can make super science real, that they just create a whole other universe to be like, well, what if it was even more real? A teenager being a photographer for a major metropolitan newspaper? That makes absolutely no sense. He's a 15-year-old boy, but he does know computers, so let's do that. Like it was just so,
yeah,
what's the most realistic thing? And this feels like counter programming to that whole attitude of, no, Storm is literally a goddess, like, and I'm going to depict her as such.
yeah. And I have a
yeah,
mild bias. Like Eric, I can see what you're saying about not being so much of a fan of this story, but I have that mild bias that like just seeing Jason Pearson's name on a book, I know I'm just gonna pick it up and I'm gonna love every bit of it, right? Like it's just I don't know. I loved it.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, it's fun.
yeah, and he does these spectacular shots really well. Like
Yeah.
like this is spectacular. This sequence is just amazing.
Yeah,
So I'm all about the storytelling. It's just aesthetically the style, the inking. I'm not feeling it. We're gonna move on to the next one, but I just want to point out just like the cross hatching that goes into the blacks. I just want to really point that out because we're gonna see a stark difference in how he does stuff like this in about 8 years later in the next comic. Uh, this is just like perfect in my mind. It's very
Mm,
slick, which I mean, I think we've established. I'm not a super fan of the slick stuff.
no.
I think that's more your speed, Colin. Which is again like nothing wrong with that. It just comes down to personal aesthetics.
it's chocolate. It's chocolate. The
So his
purest.
next comic is X Force Annual #1, uh,
I always liked
which
the idea of this team.
Can
This
you
is
stick on the cover for a sec,
yeah.
this was the
or you can
time
comment on the
when
creative team? That's fine.
they were like the hit squad for the X-Men, right? Like they were, yeah, we're gonna send you out to go and kill guys who are dangerous to us.
Yeah, very popular run at the time, eh?
I think so.
I love the credit box in the front. It's completely wrong. Kyle Yost and Clayton Crane,
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
inside it's not that.
Oh
It's
yeah,
written
that's
by
cool.
Robert Kirkman, and penciled and ink by Jason Pearson.
I remember picking this up when it came out on the rack, and I knew Jason Pearson was going to be drawing it. When I saw the cover, I actually started chuckling because the Wolverine was so badass looking on the cover. I knew this book was going to be fucking awesome. It was.
and it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. What do you guys feel about
There's-
the way he depicts those claws?
You know, when it comes to Wolverine's claws, I mean, I'm not in any way. I don't feel any way about it as a fanboy or anything. Like the way Barry Windsor Smith has drawn Wolverine's claws and the way Rob Liefeld has drawn Wolverine's claws. I don't really. It doesn't really either which way. I know some of them are drawn like as actual like katana blades coming out of his knuckles, and some of them are kind of more elephant tusk type.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
what it feels like here.
I'm a
if
bigger
it lends
fan
itself
of
to the style, it's whatever.
Yeah, I'm a bigger fan of the Frank Miller, Arthur Adams, Joe Madureira like chunky claws than these like thin. I guess what would you call these claws?
Like ice
These
picks.
are the spear
Or like
claws.
ice picks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ice
like
picks.
ice picks.
Yeah.
That's a good yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's multiple different approaches. So right here, this is a new addition to his style compared to the last version. Is in the Frank Quietly episode, we were talking about how Quietly knows an object is round, and he's trying to find a way to communicate to us, the viewer, the reader, what is round. And so usually he puts like a grid on there, even if it makes like that object generally isn't supposed to have a grid, but that's his way of communicating. This is actually Michael Golden's way of communicating round forms. But this is like cranked up several notches more. This is like, whereas Michael Golden, I think, would do a fair amount of lines. Jason Pearson is throwing dozens and dozens of lines there. And the purpose is to communicate roundness.
Yeah, because it's supposed to communicate kind of I don't know what the term is. I should know. But it's like is it a cast shadow or something? It's like it's a darker area of light that separates, high contrast with mid contrast.
Yeah, and the colorist is leaning into that clearly.
Yeah.
But let me just quickly show. So this is Michael. This is Michael Golden, and you can see he's doing that with the lines here.
Yeah.
To denote roundness.
Yeah.
Except like Jason Pearson is like doing. He does shorter lines and just a lot more of them. And we see that like all throughout this comic, and I love it so much.
He's really going with the golden, like just his whole upper shoulders and arms are just enormous.
It's just a giant blocks on blocks.
Yeah.
Which
it's all
here's a
his arms are just huge,
stacked,
and also the way he sails through the air.
Yeah, although like look at the hairy arms on Wolverine here compared to the hairy arms on Jason Pearson's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is more like Jim Lee hair.
Yeah.
On the arms. Yeah.
But again, like this leg, like he's trying to tell us that it's rounded here because this is a 2D drawing.
And that there's muscle separation there. It's not just rounded, but there is like a divot caused by the two different muscles up against each other.
Yeah, so this is about 30 years into his career.
Yeah.
He knows the human form way better than he did like, in year 3 or year 12 of his career. He's got it all figured out. So, I really want to see what the pencils look like, because it could very well be that like he didn't have a lot of this detailing in the pencils, and when he's in the ink stage, he knows what that leg is supposed to look like, and he's creating these details very sporadically based on his knowledge. Just the inking looks like he's throwing it down. He's just throwing these lines down, and that's what I was trying to comment on that previous comic, the X-Men Unlimited, which seemed very lifeless. It seemed like The inking was very carefully put down. This seems like he's just throwing lines down on the page and he's just maintaining that energy.
Well, look at
And
the
I
blackbird
love it
up
so
top
much.
too.
Oh yeah.
The blackbird, the wings.
Yeah. It reads so well in silhouette form.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a confidence, right? That he has with his skill level and what he's trying to do. I imagine as you go on longer in your career, you just kind of you're able to hold an image of what you want in your head better, so that you don't have to put as much of it down in the uh, blocking out phase or pencil phase or anything. Just like, well, I'm doing inks and I know what needs to be there already because it's locked in.
yeah, I mean, if you can get to a point where you're doing a lot of the rendering in the ink stage, not only are you saving time, but you're also like keeping that energy that like oftentimes gets lost
Mm-hmm.
between stages. Uh, Again with the short little lines, like he's trying to denote the roundness of this eye. Now, several weeks ago, we looked at a whole bunch of Michael Golden covers, and there was one cover that stood out to me as just something that clearly influenced Jason Pearson. Right here, the eye right here, it has these lines on there,
Oh yeah.
and that's something I noticed about Jason Pearson. And so
Mm.
when we looked at this cover, I saw that right away and realized, yeah, Jason Pearson was looking at this cover.
Yeah, he must have, right?
And so I think this is like what I've defined as like the third phase of Jason Pearson's style. And I think he just went back to his influences. He went back to Michael Golden and studied, and implemented all this stuff with all his new knowledge of his expanded knowledge of the rounded form, of anatomy, composition. And then you go back to your influences and grab more, and then filter your own point of view through those influences. And yeah, this is like it. This is a fight comic, and it reads really well. It's an exciting comic.
Yeah, it's
It
rad.
moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so go the bottom pages of the bottom panels of the left hand page. The shadows on the Hydra agents there, you can still see if you're looking for it. I think you can still see the types of or the genesis of those shadows from, say, the Executioner song issue. But
Yeah,
he's doing it a lot more. It's got so much. It's got a lot more organic structure, I guess. It's less constructed and more. I'm following the form of the human head, which is not uniform at all. There's bumps and divots and protrusions everywhere. So he's getting a much better feel for, or he already has a much better feel for what should be there. And I when I said at the top that this is a wild shift to me,
yeah,
I think it's because the first two iterations are quite like exacting, right?
yeah.
Like the lines
Clean,
are parallel.
very
Yeah.
clean.
But he's going like, nah, scribbles. The overlap, the variation, that's what gives this more character.
Yeah, and like even there, like you have lines written here, and then it turns into a scribble, like it turns into
Yeah.
a zigzag because he's just like moving. He's just like
Yeah.
line, squiggle, line.
And he's
Uh,
pushing
he's confident.
the grotesquerie, I guess is the only thing I can think of it. Like their mouths
Yeah,
becoming like distended and open and blown out.
yeah. Just nobody draws mouths like Jason Pearson.
Yeah.
Uh, I suspect like for a lot of people, it's not aesthetically pleasing how he draws these mouths. I personally love it, but
Oh,
you
that's
know,
what you
I've
gotta
seen
do.
I've seen hate online.
I
So
love it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're gonna push it, like this is a static image. It has to communicate motion, and you communicate motion by pushing as far as you can. So when a mouth is just flapping open, that gives you the feel of Oh yeah, that jaw is dislocating and it's open and it's yelling. I also love the shoulder folds that he's doing on the
Oh yeah.
second panel there in the Hydra agent's
Oh yeah.
arm. Yeah, it's so it has that kind of Italian or Argentinian feel, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not like a lot of artists draw muscles and then oh, there's clothes on those muscles. Like
Yeah.
this looks like clothing.
Yep.
This looks like, and it's not realistic looking clothing, but it's clothing through a cartooning of just
It
like the folds being like
feels correct.
pushed
Yeah.
and pulled.
And actually the drawing of Wolverine kneeing that Hydra agent in the gut, the flash around the impact, it's still working
Yeah.
around the figure of the Hydra agent's legs, so it still defines the figure with white
Yeah.
space, and then it's like all the blacks come like being shot out of the white space, right? Like, I love how he defines the figure like that.
Yeah.
And I just love the action lines. I love all these little lines that are denoting just like movement and action. It's very energetic. And again, like I at one point I tried to integrate this stuff into my own work, but I just could not make it work. It looked terrible whenever I did it. And I don't have a full explanation to it. I suspect it's just sort of like you got to know what you're doing. And like when at the time when I was trying to integrate it in there, I did not like understand the roundness of form as well as I do now, and also just like when to pull back and when to go all in. Because again, like he's using an appropriate amount of negative space. He knows when to go all in and when to pull back. Like how much detail is enough detail, and you just have to be a mature artist to understand all that stuff. So I was commenting on to pay attention to how he does cross etching here in 2002, and now we're in 2009, and the cross etching here is just more sporadic, less perfect. If we go here, you get the sense that it might have even been done by a ruler, which I don't think it was, but like everything's like almost perfectly spaced and horizontal to each other, whereas this is messy. So some of these lines are like veering off. Some of them are shorter than others.
Look in the hatching. Yeah, look at that hatching underneath the Hydra agent's upper leg. Yeah.
Yeah, he's added white.
Yeah. Yeah. He's erasing or adding white out or something.
Yeah. I love it so much. He's harnessing that energy. And I love this is something I talk about with Quietly, and that I want to harness in my work as well. And I think Jason Pearson has as well, but in a different way, which is this perfection mixed with imperfection, this balance, elegance. I believe you called it in the Quietly episode, Taylor, because he has this perfect understanding of the human form, and he is very meticulous when laying out these pages. But when it comes to the inking stages, it is imperfect. It can be kind of messy at times, but messy in a beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that? I want to say wabi sabi, the beauty of imperfection.
What are you talking about? And I need to absorb what you just said and put it in my vocabulary.
Yeah. I think I learned about this from a King of the Hill episode, but it's wabi sabi, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but it's an appreciation of the beauty of the individuality of something, right? Like its imperfection is what makes it beautiful, because it's singular and it's and I think when it comes to art, it's the hand of the artist, right?
And like nobody draws like Jason Pearson, so it's a very unique.
I love how you just said something really deep and insightful, and I got it from a King of the Hill episode.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just to compliment Robert Kirkman here for a bit. Something brilliant I like about this is a Wolverine comic, and he knows what we're all here for. He knows we just want to see Wolverine fight a massive army of characters, and he also knows we're waiting for those claws to come out.
Yep.
And like 9 times out of 10, it's just like, oh, panel 2 of the comic, Wolverine's got his claws out. How many pages in until his claws come out? He's fighting all these guys,
Just
no
fist
claws,
fighting them. Yeah.
just punching them, and
Wow.
just series of combat. And then we have this moment here. Like, it's almost 10 pages. Kirkman knows what are the big moments, and he's not going to give it to you right away. It's got to be special.
Yeah.
And it makes sense too. I think one of the overlooked things about Wolverine is that he is lugging around this incredibly heavy skeleton. So his punches are weighted, like his hand bones are brass knuckles unto themselves. Any hit somebody takes is going to be devastating.
Be like being hit by a brick.
Headbutts or
Yeah. Imagine getting headbutted by a guy whose skull is covered in unbreakable metal.
So like, again, like I wish I could see the pencils, but it's probably impossible. But because I want to figure out how much of the detailing and the shadow work was figured out in the pencils. Like, because we got some complex bits here on his palm.
But if he's using whiteout, he could go back in with little ticks too.
Yeah,
right?
And that's what I want to know. I want to know is just like I'm just so curious. Like, was a lot of this figured out in the inking stage with whiteout? Like, I need some lines here to communicate around form, or did he know it in advance? But I mean, he inked it himself. It's unlikely those pencils exist in any form. I do want to comment also that by this point he's added another tool to his arsenal, which is 3D SketchUp models. Because this was clearly designed in a 3D program, SketchUp, I believe, and then printed onto the page, and then he inked over it. And actually, I had heard that in a lot of examples, he just didn't have time to ink the backgrounds because there's a looming deadline, and he apparently was not the best at deadlines. And so a lot of this original art exists where the backgrounds are just blue line and the figures are inked. I had heard that his estate has a whole bunch of original art, and the ones he sold were inked. That was the way of selling them. But I think he has a stack. Like they discovered after his passing, they discovered his stack of pages, and like a lot of them are blue line backgrounds. I think there are a couple of inkers that going back and inking some of those backgrounds.
Because it looks like, I can't tell. It really looks like this bridge. It definitely looks like it was inked. Those the bottom lines defining the bottom of the bridge, but everything else, I can't quite tell.
Yeah, and that is my one criticism with this comic, is that like these backgrounds do look like not part of that singular vision. It does look like there was another hand involved with this, and that other hand was the 3D software. Because like it doesn't match 100%.
Which is too bad, because we know that he's good at technical.
So how many times does he do it? He does it 1. I'm just counting now. 2.
I think it's almost all the
3,
backgrounds.
4.
And all the vehicles. Like
5,
this base is like 100% like a 3D. Because that's like you create one model and then you duplicate it.
Okay, I stopped counting after 12. Yeah.
Like this model is like several assets that have been duplicated.
But still in perspective.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the benefits of 3D as well, is you can do these interesting perspectives and you can do them quick.
That's interesting, because this feels like something that background especially feels like something that would show up in one of your books, Eric. It looks like, yep, this is laid out correctly. But you can still see the hand of whoever's making it.
Yeah, and in my older work, actually in House of L, those deadlines were tight, and so I did use a lot of Yeah, I created a lot of 3D backgrounds, and you're right. I would ink over them to give that illusion of not illusion, but like to put my hand over top of it and to create some imperfections on something that is perfect.
Yeah.
Like a 3D model is perfect. The perspective is perfect. The everything's spaced perfectly. Uh, I don't, you're not supposed to trash your own art, but I mean, I'm not a big fan of what it looked like. Like I look back and it just doesn't look good in my opinion. And so I still do it a little bit. Like for certain objects, it's just easier. Like if somebody's carrying around a clock for an entire issue, it's just easier to design the model of that. But
Right.
And actually, I specifically did it for House of L because I wanted a lot of very round buildings, a lot of very round objects, and the easiest way to do that is with 3D models. But
Yeah, I think you're being too harsh on your House of L stuff. Audience, go check it out. I think it looks great, and it feels like an all new, but yet familiar view of Krypton.
oh, thank you, Taylor. It was just like I was doing 5 pages a week, so I just didn't have time to put a lot of TLC into those pages. Unlike my current book, Assorted Crisis Events, where like the mandate is quality, and the page is going to take as long as it needs.
Oh yeah, when you guys see more of Assorted Crisis Events available on sale now, you're gonna get blown away.
Yeah, you're a good hype man, Taylor. I should get you on the payroll. So this was just a very fun, energetic comic. Oh, something else I wanted to comment here is that he's at a stage in his career also where he's confident enough to just have a mostly all black figure here.
Which, yeah, that's ballsy.
Yeah, which earlier in those 90s XS days, like he would never have done this. He would have this double lighting and have a lot of complexity on the form. But it looks good. It suits it.
He really
looks really great.
Communicated the roundness of Storm's ass with all the leather shading in those earlier ones, and now he's like, now you know what Cyclops looks like. Let's go.
And it's a good contrast because we have a very detailed panel and then this entirely black figure,
which draws your eyes to the guy who's speaking.
Yeah, these are good looking pages. I wish I could own a couple.
Yeah, I see.
This chair. Look at that chair.
Yeah,
so well done.
Yeah, it's great.
Just so weird little energy
and the weird little squiggles.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what you need. It's.
Can we also? Can you go to page? He's holding out his arm before Wolverine cuts it off.
Oh, yeah.
On the left, like this whole page, specifically panel. I want to say it's panel 4. Yeah, it's definitely panel 4 because it goes 2 across, and then the anchor image is 3, and then back to 4 on the right side. That is a really beautifully composed shot with Wolverine standing. He's almost like he's standing ready to cut this guy's arm off.
Yeah, there's a pause before the crazy moment happens.
Yeah, exactly. But he's winding up in a way. He's got, he's taken a step back and he's about to,
Awesome. But there is a sort of like mind reading going on because he doesn't say cut my arm off. He's like, oh, okay, I don't have time, so do what you got to do. And then Wolverine's looking, and I'm like, yeah, you want me to do this?
Are you sure? Yeah.
It's a very good beat. And then he's basically saying, just do it. And then we get this amazing shot where he cuts his arm off.
Didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. I also like the attention detail that it's 3 claws, so he cut off just the spaces in between. Also,
because most times you see Wolverine chop people, it's just like 2 forms, right? It's a great detail. And that's something else to note is there's a great amount of attention to detail with stuff like this and a lot of thought put into the story. Again, like he's a writer himself, so even when he's doing work for hire stuff, working with a writer, if you're used to writing your own stuff, you are essentially like there are certain sections that you're co-writing as well because you're so used to thinking in terms of story. So like
Mhm.
a lot of these details are just coming out of his storytelling writer mind.
Right. Yeah. He's kind of editing, not editing, but maybe functioning as a sounding board uh, for the writer of like, well, I get what you're going for, but this is actually how it works.
I had heard I think I heard Hickman in an interview talk about how Big Two comics can kind of uh, do something to artists where it can like if you do too much Big Two work, it kind of like destroys certain parts of your storytelling parts of your brain
Mm,
because you're hired for a
Right.
gig and it's just you're given a script and you just follow that script
yeah.
and then you just you may start off as an energetic young artist who is like thinking in terms of story and early on you may have those muscles, but after 5 or 6 years 7 years working as an art monkey, just follow the script, those muscles atrophy and you're not thinking about story so much and you're just like just get a script, follow what's being written. And that's an important lesson is keep those muscles.
Yeah.
You should be
Yeah.
thinking as a storyteller because the art is going to be so much better. The storytelling is going to be so much better. You're going to be adding so much to the page because you're thinking as a writer.
Yeah.
There's a quote from Mad Men. Don Draper says to Peggy Olson, you're not an artist, Peggy. You solve problems," which feels like the exact attitude of Big
Right. Yeah.
Two. Of you solve the problem of this book isn't drawn yet, so start drawing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the script has some problems in it, but follow it to the letter of the law. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a lot of
That's
problem
not the
solving
issue
there.
here. The issue is the deadline's coming, so deal with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, I guess that about settles it. So three faces of Jason Pearson. What's everybody's favorite? We all know mine.
I think it's the
Well,
same for me. This third phase
yeah, I'm
is
gonna say
a lot
X
more.
Force.
Yeah,
Yeah, X Force for sure. I mean, like it goes without saying. But this is the other thing. Like I go back to my original point. Like I really lament. I wonder what he'd be drawing like today because you look at
yeah,
Stelfreeze, Cully Hamner, all those gaijin artists are doing like the work of their career today. Like Stelfreeze's Black Panther was fucking awesome,
yeah.
right?
It was.
So yeah, and that was what almost 10 years ago now. It's getting
Hmm.
there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like and do you follow his watercolor stuff on Instagram? Like
I do.
I always when I think of Jason Pearson now, I do think like putting aside suppose Body Bags is done, what would he be doing now? Would Marvel be or DC be courting him? Because I remember that Penguin one shot he did. That was really
Yeah.
great.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
I loved that Penguin one shot. Yeah,
like and it
I
was
mean,
like
I
four
he was
dollars.
supposed
It's
to
like
be working on body bags, and in my dream of dreams, he would be on his third or fourth body bags miniseries, but it was just not fated to be.
yeah,
He speaks about how body bags was just like there was a second body bags. There was a second Body Bags miniseries slated to come out in the late '90s, and he did several pages on it, and he says it put him in the hospital. And
Oh,
people kept coming up to him asking him for more body bags, and he said it was just so tough for him, but he kept trying at it, and yeah, I mean he was apparently very troubled, but I think he created amazing art, and I'm grateful for all the art we did get out of him,
mm,
and
yeah,
yeah, I want to create more videos about Jason Pearson, and there will be more videos from this channel about Jason Pearson because like
yeah,
I want him to be remembered, and I just love his work so much.
I think there's something
yeah,
too about him that, like, even if you don't necessarily love or are even a fan of the earlier stuff or any period of this, I've been thinking a lot more about this recently of like group permission to try new things. Jason Pearson trying something new and putting it out there gives license to other artists to also try something else, to incorporate something new into their stuff so that they push their own stuff forward, which just causes this cascade of, okay, well, we don't have to do infinite teeth and endless pouches. We can do Storm is a ballet dancer, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point, because it seems like he was going against the grain often. Like in the 90s, when everybody was drawing like Jim Lee, he was doing some cartoony stuff and very foundation skill focused work, I suppose, like rather than style first. And then in the Jemis era of Marvel, when everything was starting to go realistic, he was going more cartoony.
Yeah.
And he was always going against the grain.
Yeah, push stuff and let others see it so that they know you don't have to do what he's doing, but you can push yourself in the way that he does as well.
And be fearless.
Yeah. So RIP
just to speak
Jason
to the audience, though. Yeah, like and also again speak to the audience, especially aspiring artists. There's so much you can learn from this guy's stuff, and it's almost like we're spoiled. It was like $4 for that X-Force comic, but that X-Force comic, you can go back to it over. It's a popcorn movie you can put on any time, and you still get the full effect, right?
Yeah.
It holds up till this day. So I really do encourage. Like Eric said, we are definitely going to be doing more episodes on Jason Pearson. But for sure, guys, check out this stuff. It's all attainable. This is all stuff you can find in your back issue bins at your stores. So seek them out for sure. And what do you think next, Eric? We're going to do body bags or?
Oh, similar to the short stories of JP Leon, I think we're gonna do a series of we're gonna have an episode where we look at all the short stories of Jason Pearson. We'll probably for our viewers, maybe you'll see it in about 4 weeks or so.
Nice.
But I'm not certain of that. Which I'm very excited about that, because with this episode we saw the highlight of his phases. In a lot of those short stories, we're going to see the transitionary periods where one is blending into the other, and it'll make it more clear how one led to the other.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
So that should be a lot of fun.
For sure. Yeah.
But how was everybody's art week? Because we're all artists. So what does everybody not been up to?
I didn't get anything done. You know what? I think I'm going to go back to life drawing and stuff like that, because the stuff I've been cranking out, like an effort to try to do something for these episodes, I've been hating it. Like these go onto the internet forever, and I'm like, I make these executive decisions last minute where I'm like, nope, got to pull the shoot on this one, bro. So yeah, I think I'm. Not that I'm going to take a break, but I'm just going to make more of an effort to try to get go back to some of the basics and just kind of get into this vibe of also just like moving the pencil around in general, like finding these new hatching techniques or just shading techniques and stuff. I've been doing a lot more of these intuitive life drawings off Pinterest. You just take a few Pinterest images and just kind of sketch them out. Like I'm trying to play more with texture and things like that. I find that I'm going a little bit more into this blocky mode, which is kind of lifeless, and I don't like that. And things just look overall wrong and fake and just not me. So I think I'm gonna take some time to just go back to basics and focus more on gesture drawing, life drawing, and things like that before I do anything that I think is worthy of. Like I'm surprised I have put anything on this channel for people to see. I'm just like disgusted by all of it. So,
well, a lesson that can be learned with Jason Pearson is like foundation skills first, style second.
Yeah. To your point earlier, Colin, about Daniel Warren Johnson, I'll tell you, nothing gets me drawing more than seeing his live streams every Friday. Like he just cranks drawings out, and there's something about that that's like right on. I'm gonna start drawing now. Let's go. Well,
to speak to that, like every episode, obviously we're supposed to churn something out that's to the theme of the episode. So in the case of like Tomb of Dracula, I tried to do something more along the lines of Gene Colan and his depiction of Dracula, and I just wasn't getting there. And then Michael Golden, though, and Jay Lee, like I'm really a lot more like drawn to those. So I kind of try to sketch in that style when I'm trying to design something to draw. And yeah, I think Michael Golden, I'm going to stick to him for the next little while. I do really understand his. It's speaking to me a little bit more. Just the way he, his blockhead style is really more. What's the word? I get it.
Well, it's
A
just
little bit more, So,
aesthetically pleasing to your eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Because a lot of
Yeah,
that stuff is very
100%.
personal, right?
Yeah.
Like what speaks to
Oh
you.
well, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Taylor, did you do any art?
What do you got, Taylor?
I sure did. Yes. Check this out. This is inspired by the final one. This is it's just Wolverine
Oh, wow.
killing a bunch of guys, a bunch of Hydra guys.
Oh, nice.
I don't know that it makes a lot of sense.
The Wolverine pose is awesome.
Thank you.
Really nice.
Yeah, I really loved the way that
he's kind of mid jump.
Yeah, and I love the way that Pearson shows Wolverine like falling or being launched midair in this kind of coiled up feeling, I guess.
Yeah. You how many figures did you draw on that page?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's time consuming.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do that?
It took me 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time.
Jesus.
You can see I spent a lot of time on trying to get these poses correct, and yeah, you can see the a Hendrix one for an upcoming illustration as well. But yeah, I was trying to get these like, okay, how is that pose going to look? Which is like this is something that this show has made me focus more on. Actually, is like not the first idea, the good idea, the correct pose. It feels like it's getting in the way of drawing at first, but just doing the loose sketches at the beginning, it really helps the whole process go much faster.
But also you don't get frozen by like I bring up the multiple figures because I would put way more time into it because I would just get worried and in my head about perfection and like every one of these figures has to make sense and like you just get it done.
Yeah.
To speak to your talking about getting inspired by the Daniel Warren Johnson, like you just go, and that is what you're supposed to do is just get it done.
Yeah,
it's like don't get in your head. And I feel like
analysis paralysis.
That's something I need to learn and harness a bit.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason why I don't have any art to show off.
Man, I thought that was going to be a build-up for, and here's what I made this week.
No. Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I did. Hold on, maybe I did do something. Did I do something? Oh, actually, okay. I didn't actually plan on showing this off, but yeah, I just did a really quick Wolverine.
Oh, that's fun as hell. Yeah.
Nice.
I meant to put some watercolor on top of this and play around. I'm not entirely happy with the anatomy and everything and how the lighting works with the anatomy, but yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to impart about. Just get it done. I just got it done. So this took me. I don't know if this is embarrassing or not. It took me an hour. Does that look like an hour's work?
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like he's being
believable.
launched. He's mid fastball special.
Yeah, so
were you gonna do brown or gray costume?
Actually, I went with the black costume from the Jason Pearson issue.
Nice,
right?
Yeah,
gray black.
The boots are not the like what do you call that? Where like the fin boots or whatever.
The horned boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Turns out I did do some art. I just forgot.
So
Taylor, you have a Kickstarter going. How is it going? Because it's live right now, right?
Yeah, it's live. It's going now. It's going good so far. This is the first time I've been involved in a Kickstarter in a long time, and luckily Dauntless is handling a lot of it, and they really know their stuff. So shout out to Marcus Jimenez over at Dauntless Stories. He's the writer of the book and co-creator, along with myself. I'm looking forward to everybody seeing it.
And you're all done. You've done all 4 issues.
Yep, I've completed it all. It was I should say though, it was supposed to be 4 issues. But it will now be 2 oversized issues due to the collapse of Diamond distribution.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
ripple effects across.
Yeah, it gets all the way down to me and Dauntless, right? It's you never know how something like that is going to affect it. So
yeah, it's funny because I really wanted to launch Assorted Crisis events like late last year. Like all last year, I was like, I hope we get September or November, and it just wasn't in the cards. It didn't happen for whatever reason, and it ended up being March 2025 launch. And I am so happy it worked out that way because the Diamond bankruptcy affected so much. It affected all indie comics, even Image, and we would have got swept up in that if we had launched late last year. So yeah, it just worked out, I guess, and I'm thankful. And the launch of Assorted Crisis events has been beyond all expectations.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how are the sales? I mean, the reviews have been great.
The sales, like, I mean, it's not like a massive hit and we're all rich now, but it again, like, beyond my expectations.
Excellent.
Because I feel like the last several books didn't necessarily have a big readership, but this, like, when people are reading the book, like, and I would. The last several comics I did, I knew nobody's reading it, or I just didn't get a sense. There were probably people reading it, but I just didn't get a sense of the readership. With Assorted Crisis events, like, it is very clear to me that people are reading this, and there's a lot of excitement for it. So yeah, just again, like, beyond my expectations.
Excellent. That's what we love to hear. Jump on that train now, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Hell yeah.